US President Donald Trump has warned that the attack on Iran could run longer than a month as Tehran retaliated to ongoing strikes by targeting US allies in the Gulf, and drones hit the US Embassy in Saudi Arabia on Tuesday. 2 drones hit the US Embassy in the Saudi capital of Riyadh. Saudi Defense Ministry spokesperson said that a fire broke out at the building after a blast. The embassy later confirmed an attack and urged people to stay away, saying it would be closed on Tuesday. Speaking to the US media, Trump said, "You'll find out soon how the United States would respond," without providing further details. Meanwhile, the US Embassy in Kuwait said it was closed until further notice, a day after smoke was seen rising from the mission following Iranian attacks on the country. The US State Department has ordered non-emergency personnel to leave Bahrain, Jordan, and Iraq. Loud explosions were heard and clouds of smoke seen in the city's diplomatic quarter, home to foreign embassies in the capital and residences of foreign diplomats. A source said that Saudi air defense intercepted 4 drones targeting Riyadh diplomatic quarter. The US Embassy in Saudi Arabia has also issued shelter-in-place notifications for citizens in Jeddah, Riyadh, and other areas. Qatar's military claimed that it intercepted 2 ballistic missiles early on Tuesday morning. Loud explosions were heard across Doha as suspected Iranian missiles were neutralized in the sky early on Tuesday. Missiles were also seen being intercepted over Israel and occupied West Bank. Flares flying up and down in the sky could be seen from the West Bank city of Hebron, as well as over the Israeli cities of Tel Aviv and Haifa, while air raid sirens could be heard. For more on this, we are joined by Navdeep Singh Suri. He is a former ambassador of India to the UAE. Sir, thank you very much for joining us on the broadcast. Now, we've seen in the last few days that Iran is continuing to attack Gulf countries where US has bases. So how do you think the Gulf countries will react over the next few days to this escalating conflict as they have been caught in the crossfire?
Well, I think it really puts them in a very difficult situation because on one hand, they had told the Iranians that they will not allow their countries or the military bases that the US has in their countries to be used to target Iran. And Iran is certainly hitting back and targeting not only the military bases, but also a lot of the civilian infrastructure, airports, hotels, other oil installations, and so on. There was a meeting of the 6 GCC foreign ministers day before yesterday, and I think they've announced that if this continues, they will have to respond in some form or the other. The Saudis have said after the attack on the refinery that they have the right to respond. And let's not forget that countries like UAE and others have very capable armed forces. I mean, having served in Abu Dhabi, I can tell you that their air force, etc., are considered next only perhaps to Israel in the region. So they have the capacity to hit back. But I think they are also mindful that do they really want to widen the scope of the conflict, or do they want to find a way to bring it to an early closure?
That's right, sir. As you mentioned, you have vast knowledge of the West Asia zone. So when it comes to Iran's leverage, and they have sort of used the Strait of Hormuz as economic leverage, and they have shut it off and made threats in terms of how they will attack any ship that goes through that strait. Do you think Iran will use that further to prolong the war and pressurize the United States and Israel to gain a solution that is more suitable to Iran?
Yeah, I think right now the Iranian approach seems to be to inflict maximum pain, not just on the US, but on its allies and on countries in the region and beyond, and to make this a global issue so that countries near and far start putting pressure on the US to bring this war to an early conclusion. I think it has profound implications for India. 60% of our energy supplies were coming traditionally from that narrow stretch of water in the Strait of Hormuz. A lot of our LNG from Qatar comes through that. And so, this is going to put pressure on oil prices. This is going to put pressure on gas prices. And so even countries like India, which may not otherwise have gotten involved, will now have a direct and immediate stake in getting the war to an early conclusion, if we can.
So you mentioned India there, where India will be affected because the amount of oil that comes through that region. Do you think the government will have a contingency plan in order in terms of the oil supplies that will be lost out because of this ongoing conflict in West Asia?
Look, in a sense, none of this comes as a surprise. These are scenarios that we've looked at on multiple occasions in the past, whenever we've seen instability or conflict in the Gulf region. I remember when I was ambassador in UAE in 2019, we were looking at the worst case scenarios if the Strait of Hormuz is blocked by the Iranians. And today we are facing up to that. We do have strategic petroleum reserves in Mangalore, in Pudur, in Visakhapatnam, and so on. We do have reserves with our oil refining companies. And we have alternate sources, including Russia. I don't see the Americans telling us not to buy from Russia if the Strait of Hormuz is closed. So I think in the near future, there is no immediate scarcity of oil, but the price of oil is something that is going to hurt us, because remember that $1 increase in the price of oil adds $2 billion to our annual oil import bill. So already prices have gone up from $60 to $80. So you can do the numbers on the real economic impact on India.
I just want to get a comment from you from the number of statements that have actually been coming in from the American side recently. Now, Donald Trump has said that on multiple occasions that the Iranian regime is something that he was completely against. But recently there have been a number of comments where he's not outrightly saying that he's against the regime, but he wants a regime adjustment rather than a regime change. What kind of goal do you think the US is looking at in terms of this moment? What do you think is the objective they want to achieve from this war?
President Donald Trump has the remarkable capacity of saying multiple mutually contradictory things. He can say one thing one day and a completely different thing another day. He can say on one day that his focus is on nuclear capability of Iran, the another day on missile capability, and on the third day on regime change. But if to the extent that Israel seems to be playing a critical role in determining American policy on this subject, I think Prime Minister Netanyahu's statements also need to be taken equally seriously when he says that it's regime change thereafter. And I just wish that people would learn the lessons of history and go back from Vietnam to Afghanistan to Iraq and recognize what a disaster the attempts to bring about a regime change have been for the Americans themselves. When you look at the numbers, 35,000 killed or wounded in Iraq, 25,000 killed or wounded in Afghanistan, $2.5 trillion down the drain in Afghanistan, $3 trillion down the drain in Iraq. And those places were left worse off as a consequence of US intervention. Is that what they want for Iran? This would be Iraq multiplied by a factor of several times.
Well, right. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast with those insights and how the war will affect India when it comes to oil supplies. Thank you for your valuable insights, sir.
Thank you.